In this lesson, we're focusing on the sentencing of adult offenders, basically how the court decides what happens when someone's been convicted. We'll cover why sentencing matters, the main aims, and the types of sentences judges can give. So by the end, you should feel confident explaining the purpose of sentencing and linking it to exam questions. Let's talk about the aims of sentencing for adults first, and this is basically why the courts hand down certain sentences. And first up, there's punishment. This is the idea of making the offender pay for what they did. You can think of it as society saying, you've done wrong, and these are the consequences. Next is deterrence. There are two types here. Individual deterrence, which means we aim it at the offender themselves and it tries to stop the offender from reoffending. And we've also got general deterrence. This sends a message to everyone else: crime doesn't pay. Next, we've got rehabilitation, which is about helping the offender change their ways and reintegrate back into society so they don't end up back in court. Very important, of course. Protection of the public is also another key aim, about keeping dangerous people away from the rest of us, and that's usually through prison or other restrictions. And then finally, we've got reparation, which is making the offender put right the harm they caused, maybe through fine or compensation. And all of this is guided by the law, specifically the Sentencing Act 2020, Section 57. Very important that you know that. Judges can't just make it up on the spot. They have to follow these aims to make sure the sentence is fair, that it's proportionate and consistent. So let's consider types of sentence, and we'll have a look at each one now. So first of all, we have custodial sentences, and these are the most serious penalties and involve a person being sent to prison. A custodial sentence can be immediate, and that means the offender goes straight to prison. Do not pass go, straight to prison. They can also be suspended, which means the person does not go to prison immediately, but they've got to obey certain conditions. And then if they do commit another offence or break those conditions, well, that sentence can then be activated and they will serve the prison term. Now, custody is only going to be used when the offence is so serious that no other sentence is appropriate. What have we got next? We've got community orders. So these are used when the court wants to punish the offender, but also help change their behaviour. A community order can include a combination of requirements. This could be unpaid work, like community service, rehabilitation programmes, for example, programmes aimed at reducing offending behaviour. They could be treatment requirements, like drug or alcohol treatments, or curfews, where the offender must stay at a certain address at specific times. The idea behind community orders is to really address the causes of offending while still holding the person accountable, of course. Next on the list is fines. And this, of course, is a financial penalty. The amount isn't random. The size of the fine is based on the offender's income to ensure fairness. A wealthy person, quite rightly, will pay more than someone on a low wage, even if they've committed the same offence. Finally, we've got discharges, and these are the least severe sentences. There are two main types. Firstly, you've got conditional discharge, where the court decides not to punish the offender now, but if they commit another offence within a set time, they can be sentenced for both the new offence and the original one. And then we've also got an absolute discharge, and this means no further action at all. It's going to be used for extremely minor offences where the court believes punishment would be unnecessary. So there we go. Those are the main types of adult sentences. You've got custodial, community orders, fines and discharges, and each one is chosen based on the seriousness of the offence and the needs of justice. Moving on. There are things that can make a sentence less severe because they suggest the offender deserves some level of leniency. And these are mitigating factors. Now, they don't excuse the offence, but they help the court understand why a lower sentence might be fair. The first mitigating factor is an early guilty plea. If an offender pleads guilty at the earliest opportunity, the court will reduce their sentence. Why? Because it saves the court time and resources. Trials are expensive. It also saves witnesses from having to give evidence. And it shows the offender is accepting responsibility too. So the earlier the guilty plea, the bigger the reduction. Sometimes it can actually be up to 1/3 of the sentence. Next is genuine remorse, a really important factor. If the offender shows real regret for what they've done through their actions, words or behaviour, the court may view them as less likely to reoffend. It's important that it is genuine remorse though. I mean, saying sorry to get a lighter sentence wouldn't be enough. Next, the court looks at whether the offence was planned or spontaneous. If there was no premeditation, meaning the offender didn't plan the crime in advance, that reduces their blameworthiness. A lack of intent or a moment of madness, a moment of impulse, that can lead to a lower sentence than something very deliberate and organised. And then finally, the court will consider the offender's personal circumstances and character. For example, previous good character, that can count. Also, stable employment. Whether the offender had mental health issues that are maybe still ongoing, whether they've got caring responsibilities, and also evidence of positive contributions to the community can count. These factors suggest the offence may be out of character or that harsh punishment would be disproportionate. Let's look at a little case here. So we've got John, who is 28, and he's been convicted of shoplifting 3 times in the past 2 years. He was caught stealing electronics worth £500 from a store. So remember, mitigating factors are things that make an offence less serious. They help explain the behaviour or show the offender deserves a lighter sentence. Let's have a look at John then. Well, if he pleads guilty early, that could be a possible mitigating factor. If he cooperates with the police, perhaps as well if he has any personal difficulties that contributed to his behaviour, all of those things may well influence the outcome of his sentence. However, we've also got to consider something called aggravating factors. Now, aggravating factors are things that make the offence more serious and show that the offender deserves a tougher sentence. So in John's case, what might those be? Well, I mean, he's a repeat offender, isn't he? He's done this before. And those offences are really close together in time, so he's built a bit of a pattern here. And the value of the goods is very high too. So what are John's chances? Well, I mean, given his history and the value of the theft, it is likely that a sentence would probably be a short custodial sentence, a bit of a stay in prison for a couple of months. That could, of course, be reduced if there are strong mitigating factors. And we'll just finish off with some evaluation. When we evaluate sentencing, we can see that there are clear benefits. It helps ensure proportionality, meaning the punishment fits the seriousness of the offence, and it supports public confidence in the justice system because people can see that crimes are being addressed fairly. That's a good thing. But there are also some challenges too. Prison overcrowding can really limit the effectiveness of custodial sentences. It is an issue. There can also be some inconsistencies between cases where similar offences get different sentences, and that does seem very unfair. The public sometimes feels that sentences are too lenient too, especially for serious crimes. Now, to address this, the Sentencing Council issues guidelines that give judges a framework for deciding sentences. And these guidelines hopefully increase consistency while still allowing a bit of judicial discretion. So judges can take into account the unique circumstances of each case, like the mitigating and aggravating factors we've discussed, and the balance between consistency and flexibility can remain central to achieving both fairness and justice.